All right, let's go ahead and call this meeting to order of the Prudential Committee. It's 3:30 on December 7th, 2015 at Thomas Fleming School. I am Michael Smith, Board Chair of the Prudential Committee. And first thing on our agenda is any visitors or staff to be heard. And what I would like to do is immediately turn things over to Principal Ryan to take over and talk about your principal's report and any other presentations that your staff have prepared for us.
Thank you. I'd like to say welcome to the Prudential Committee. It's an honor to host you here in Thomas Fleming School. I've been thinking a lot about Thomas Fleming lately, and I was looking at his picture today and just recalling the fact that if Thomas Fleming was here today, he wouldn't recognize the building. He'd be unfamiliar with the technology that we're using here, but he would be familiar with the dedicated, caring, and talented faculty and staff that we have here. He would be familiar with the students and how they're here to learn and how they take every learning opportunity that's offered to them. He'd be familiar with that, and he'd be familiar with the caring community that supports our schools and the leadership that serves on this Prudential Committee that wisely in 1973 named this school after Thomas Fleming after nearly 30 years of being the school custodian here. So people are valued regardless of when it was the time of Thomas Fleming to today. This school is all about valuing people and valuing education that is so richly provided here in our school. So I wanted to, rather than share data with you, I wanted to share some really important examples of the kind of learning and caring for others that we are trying to educate our students at Fleming School with that focus. So I also want to welcome you to this learning center, which is a unique learning center. If you go across the state or across the country, you won't see many learning centers that are set up with the multiple purposes in mind that we have represented here. So rather than myself telling you about it, we have Dr. Madeira who's here with us this afternoon, and I'd just like to have her share some opening remarks about where we are and what we accomplish in this wonderful space here. Dr. Madeira?
Everybody, and especially welcome to our Learning Center. And I think our Learning Center is unique and has some special things about it, both space-wise and in the program. You'll notice a lot of cozy chairs we have and couches. We have 2 fireplaces, which I don't think you'll see too often. The idea being that we want this to be welcoming, a place where both students and others come in and find a cozy place to sit down and read. We have skylighting panels, which is a little bit different. Often if you come in during the day, there's soft music playing. I didn't like the idea of shelves in a straight row, so we changed it. So there's a reading nook behind us with floor rockers where the kids can sit. And behind you, we have hanging windows, which I got from the salvage company here in Essex Junction. And that is a Red Clover Cafe on the other side, which is partially a reference center and also a listening center with playaways, which are like MP3 players where kids can go any place in the room and listen to a good book, or you can sit down with a CD and listen to a book also. We have iPads with interactive books and writing programs on them. We have 15 laptops that can be used throughout the room. On the other end of the technology spectrum, we have 2 therapy dogs who come in weekly, a Ritter and Polar Bear. And we also have 3 life-size stuffed dogs who are our stand-in therapy dogs that are here also. There are 8 learning stations scattered about the room so that kids not only can come in to read or use technology, but they can come in and make a book at the Writing Center, they can study for the GOB at the Geography Center, they can listen to music and learn some things about that. There are, again, listening stations that they can do. We have puppets. I love puppets, so I encourage the kids to write their own scripts, and we're hoping to do some filming of them too in our new space. I mentioned the Red Clover Cafe. Also, some other things that are rather unusual is I start every class that I teach with a mindfulness moment, an exercise to calm the students and get them focused, as well as myself. Every 3 weeks, we now have live music on Friday afternoons in the Learning Center with our music teacher, Ralph Costanza, playing while the kids are doing their activities. We have an art gallery outside the back entrance in the hallway that will have ever-changing exhibits. We are set up for global connections here in this space also, and along with Dave Davidson, I try to co-facilitate Skyping around the world. Recently we've done some with the Alaska Zoo and the International Wolf Center in Minnesota. We also have a creation station over here, which will be a spot where students can sign up to do activities that they might not otherwise do, such as learning about architecture, doing circuitry, other kinds of building, and doing some art activities. My office, back over there, is now the Dorothy Canfield Cafe. You can tell I'm big on cafes, which is now just a quiet spot where staff can go for a few moments of quiet. And we also have over here the Jean Dumbleton Reading Corner, which is named after a former 4th grade teacher that was here for many years, and we lost her in an accident a number of years ago. And Jean was known as the book lady. I don't think anyone purchased more books for the classroom out of her own money than Jean did. And her daughter, Kat, who teaches at the high school, donated many of those books. And so we have a space dedicated to her. The kids know who she is. I've talked about her, and they really enjoy going to that corner to read her many books, and I know that would make Jean very happy. No space is wasted around here. You're going to see in a moment our new AV center. But as you enter it, there's a snowshoe cafe, because we do have snowshoes here too. And I set up a little cafe corner, which can be used by students and staff. But the special thing back in that corner is, as I said, our new AV space, which used to house televisions and overhead projectors. And now, as you'll see shortly, it is a state-of-the-art filming studio for students and editing station, complete with a green screen. And this room is going to be dedicated, of course, to Annette Vincent, who for many years was our technology support person that we so heavily relied on. So welcome. We do think this is a special place, and we're glad you're here.
Thank you, Dr. Madeira. So we did have planned on our agenda to go in and check out the space, that I would like to have the board's endorsement to name that space the Annette Vincent Lab. And as Ms. Madeira said, Annette Vincent was a dedicated IT member of our IT staff here who passed away 2 years ago. She succumbed to cancer, but she did great work, and she was very connected with our teachers and our students here, and so we thought that would be a fitting way to honor her and her memory and what she dedicated her work in this school and in the district. And it just so happens that AV is also the initials for Annette Vincent, so it works out very well in that regard. But I think we'll take sort of a break to walk and see that space once the student presentations are finished, and be a break to get on with the rest of your agenda. So next on our agenda is Mr. Gomet and his students. We sort of have a local focus of caring and a international or global focus for the board today. So Mr. Gilmet, who's our 4th and 5th grade teacher on the Mountaineer team, has some students here to present what they've been working on, and Mrs. Foley has been collaborating with Mr. Gilmet on this project.
So in our in-service, Mr. Ryan shared with us a video called the butterfly effect. And essentially that is, there's a physics problem where it can come out that a butterfly can actually cause a hurricane on the other side of the world through it's like a whole elaborate system that they predict could actually make a hurricane.
So the whole message was essentially spreading caring and kindness across the country. And I don't know if you've seen 60 Minutes recently, but Chris Rosati's been on there. He's the guy that was handing out Krispy Kreme donuts, and he was trying to spread goodness or kindness that way. But he's also started another system that Lucas will talk about shortly. So our Mountaineer team, our focus this year, instead of hopes and dreams, we had the students make butterflies and how they could change the world. So you'll find out kind of where our project is headed and the work that these fine students are doing. And Mrs. Foley has been a huge part of this and her awesome creativity as well. So I'll turn it over to my two fine students, Lucas and Eden here.
Butterfly effect, an act of kindness. This is Chris Rosati, and he proves the butterfly effect. One day, he was in a restaurant. He gave two girls each $50. Months had passed, and he'd forgotten totally about that. Then one night, he got an email from an orphanage in Africa. There was a picture. There was a picture of the orphanage holding a big sign saying, "Thank you, Chris Rosati." And the butterfly effect had begun. Toy and game decision. We made a Google Doc with a list of many different and totally awesome ideas. We decided on one idea that all kids would be interested in, toys and games. Our class will donate the toys and games to COTS for fellow kids who may not have a permanent place to live. Before we started making our projects, we brainstormed ideas on the Chromebooks. Here are some rough drafts and sketches of ideas we thought of. We were also inspired by a video called Kane's Arcade. Kane is a 10-year-old boy who created a cardboard arcade in his father's used auto parts shop. We went down to Miss Foley's art room and got our materials to start making our things. We turned Miss Foley's art room into a makerspace by getting a lot of materials and using different things to help us make it. We've been using math and problem-solving skills to help us. We're using a lot of different materials and tools. For example, X-Acto knives, cardboard, markers, scissors, and much more.
Hammers, wood, nails.
To be continued. Under construction.
So we basically have a lot more work to do, and we're getting some parents coming in the next 2 Fridays. Our goal was to have this done before the holiday break, and this is really just so much of their ideas and their inspiration. So it's a prime example of project-based learning, and we were lucky to be able to do this during the arts integration time, and that Mr. Gomet saw the connection between science and math, not in the most obvious ways, but it's so rich as these kids are measuring and thinking, how is this going to work? We've got all kinds of great standards being met throughout this project, with them being totally inspired, I would say. Doing a great job so far.
And so the story of those two girls, they used the $50 to then donate to a village in Africa where they could get fresh water, and that Chris Rosati is now offering that up. I don't think it's available yet, but he's going to be funding students that apply for these grants to use that $50 to spread this kindness. So we're using our materials like Kane's Arcade used, the simple cardboards and things like that to make toys for the COTS. And these guys have some unbelievable ideas.
Yeah,
Really
doing
cool.
Great. Doing good work.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
So the homeless shelters in Chittenden County will benefit from the games that these students are creating. So we're looking forward to finishing them and donating them to these shelters. So next, I promised you a global connection here. We have Bissau here with us today. He immigrated here from Nepal, and he has put together a PowerPoint presentation for you to give the board some perspective about where our many ELL students come from and what their experiences are. It was very inspirational seeing Basal's presentation that he created and made good use of technology here. But I think it gave his fellow students and staff here and myself a perspective of the paths that our many students and many more students of an ELL population here in the district. I thought it was a good opportunity to share that perspective with the board.
So, it's my turn.
Yes.
Mrs. Borg couldn't be here today. She's at a conference. And so in order to talk about the project last week, she and Basal, we took advantage of our new AV room to create a short video to kind of talk about the project. So we'll watch that. And then we're going to see some of the project itself, which was created with Google Earth, where the students' images and their voices are embedded into a Google Earth file. So we're going to see it within Google Earth. It's pretty amazing. We'll see a component of that. And she chose that way of giving the kids a voice because it blended the geography of where they lived with images of themselves and their voices. So we're going to start by watching this little video.
नमस्ते मेरो नाम विशाल तिवारी हो म नेपालबाट आएको
Namaste, मेरो नाम Jennifer Bork ho. Vishal is here today to share with you a project that he and many other ELL students worked on at Fleming in the spring of 2015. In the fall of 2014, we welcomed 3 new students to Fleming who had just arrived from the Beldangi refugee camp in Nepal. One of my jobs as an ELL teacher is to help my colleagues understand where our international students are coming from and to anticipate how their languages, cultures, and background experiences might have implications in the classroom. One thing I quickly learned from our new students from Nepal was that we had as much to learn from them as they had to learn from us. Often when we hear the word Nepal, we conjure up images of an icy Mount Everest, Tenzing Norgay, Sir Edmund Hillary, Sherpas, and yaks. And in fact, these 3 students from Nepal sported flip-flops well into November, shivered in the cold, and had never seen snow before arriving in Vermont. That was just the beginning of their story. As the year progressed and their language skills grew, I learned more about their unique experiences in Nepal. We decided to do a project that would give them an authentic audience to practice their English language skills while providing their classmates and teachers with a glimpse into their native communities and cultures. Together, they created a Google Earth tour which visited their home countries and allowed them to give us a window into a world far removed from Essex Junction, Vermont. Vishal is here today to give you a glimpse into his life in Beldangi. His friend Kritika has also given us permission to share her voice today. Enjoy.
So I forgot to say that after we see the Google Earth presentation, Vishal will be happy to answer your questions if you have any. He's a very brave person. Okay, so here's Google Earth, if you're unfamiliar. And so we're just going to kind of zoom in on Nepal. And then the community that you saw came from. And then we're going to see and hear Vishal speak about his home.
नमस्ते म विशाल तिवारी म नेपालबाट आएको Hi, I am Vishal Tiwari. I come from Nepal. My house was in Beldangi too, in southeast Nepal. It was made of thatch bamboo, mud and black plastic. My house had a large flower garden and a vegetable garden. There was a long road and a big tree near my house. In my house there were 4 rooms, 2 bedrooms, one sitting room, and one kitchen. I had 2 bicycles. I rode my bicycle to the market. My family had a vegetable shop in the market. The market is near the school. This man is making fat walls with thin sticks of bamboo. These are sun cookers. They look like satellite dishes, but they are for cooking food in the sun. We put a pot of food inside the dish and rotate the dish to follow the sun and cook the food. These are people getting food rations from the storehouse. We did this on Mondays, every 2 weeks. The rations would have rice, oil, salt, sugar, and cornmeal. My school's name is Panchavati English School. My school is made of thatch and bamboo. In my school, there are 40 teachers and 39 rooms. My school looks like a U-shaped shape. The teachers beat children with thin sticks and rulers. All schools have flower gardens. This is my school office. This teacher is taking attendance at school. Every boy's student needs to wear a pink badge. Girl students wear pink ribbons.
And now this is just a couple from Karika. Say it louder.
Kritika.
Oops.
Namaste, my name is Kritika Rayo, I'm from Nepal. Hi, my name is Kritika, I'm from Nepal. In Essex, our house has a bathroom with a tub and toilet. We had water in the faucet. In Nepal, we had to get water at the pump when they turned it on. I carried it in buckets called jerking in Nepali. They were very heavy. We used this water for everything. The toilets were outside of the house. We had many neighbors and there were many animals. Elephants and snakes and monkeys lived in the jungle across the road. It was a little scary.
So, and all of the students created their own section of this project. We just showed you a small portion of it, just to give you a taste of what it was. As you could tell, there was a lot of work that was put into this. I thought it was a great combination of technology and student voices, and if anyone has any questions for Bisal, he'd be happy to answer your questions.
I have a question. I have two. My first one is, what do you miss the most about Nepal? And my second one is, what do you like the best about being in the USA?
I miss my house and my pets. And here I like is
There's all thing like bathroom and bathtub all inside house. In Beldang, where there is bathroom looks like far away from home. Then like it's scary at night. Animal come near our house.
Yeah.
They broke our house like elephants, something.
Any other questions for Bisal?
You shared with the class when you made the presentation that your sister had to go to get water, and you have to walk a long ways to get water.
Yes.
Can you speak to that a little bit? What was it like to get water, and how did you do that?
We have like little like buckets, and we grab them like we take them from our we put it in bathroom something. Then we grab it from there. If we have water there, then we put some in bucket, and we grab every bucket which don't have water. Then we have big lines for water, and we grab water from there.
And you explained that you used to heat water in that dish, that big solar dish there that looks like a satellite dish. If you wanted to have hot water, you put it in the dish and heat it.
Yeah, we can like if we have hot water or cold water, put it in like pot and cover it and put it there, and put where sun come from, and move the like this, then move there where sun come from. Then it's like turn into hot, and the water boiled, and it's hard to get out of there.
Sure.
In the video, that young girl said she used to carry water in Nepal,
Yeah,
and you just said your sister did.
yeah.
Do any of the boys go and get water?
Yeah, everyone go get water.
Every.
Like two hands for every family.
Okay.
Very nice. Thank you
Thank you
so
very
much.
much.
So, as I said, I wanted to give the board a little view of acting locally and honoring globally our connections, and understanding that our school is made up of students who have different paths for getting here. But when they're here, they certainly continue to learn in a caring environment that's supportive and gives them every opportunity that education should give all students. So we're proud of that, and I think the example of how Bisal learned to make his presentation. It's not only the language skills that went into that presentation, but it's also learning how making use of technology as tools can really assist our students in their learning and advance their learning. And it's very powerful in that respect. So we're looking forward, and I think that's a nice transitional loop to asking the board to come and see our new Annette Vincent space. So if people would, yes.
I have one question. I didn't get a chance to ask these students
Yeah.
if I could.
Yes.
Can you share one of your games that you're making right now?
Well, the group that I'm working with, we're making Play-Doh.
Play-Doh.
Like foam board and nails and like wood and a big piece of plexiglass over the front of it.
And how's it work?
At the top, you can like drop like a checker or something in there, and then it falls through all the nails. Kind of.
Oh.
Yeah. On the bottom, there's gonna be like a pool noodle, like it's like cut up, and like on the sides. So each pool noodle has a different amount of like points.
Oh.
Okay.
The pool noodles cut in half. They're gonna cut it so it drops in there. Each one has a different point total.
cool idea. Do you have anything in the works yet?
We're not making really a game. We're making like snowmans out of socks and beads. And then there's a head, the middle, and the bottom, and we separate them by rubber bands and put beads in them. Then we can like decorate them with beads and different paper.
Nice.
Yeah, we're gonna make this marble maze, but you like drop it down and it goes like that. We're using it with wood and nails.
Oh,
Tilted like this, there's normal through
oh, like a tilt. Oh.
They're mostly low tech, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. A great idea. Mr. Ryan, I'm so impressed with your students. They've
Yeah.
done such an amazing job, and the collaboration of your teachers is always noteworthy as well. To see a whole team wrapped around some of these cool ideas you guys have is quite impressive, as well as learning so much about Nepal. So thank you so much for sharing.
So if we could follow me, and we'll show you our new spaces.
All right, so everybody's back? Good, okay.
Here we are.
So that was really nice to get some perspective and to have Basal give us that presentation. Thank you. So we're gonna, I guess, move into school action plans. And I mean, I haven't had a chance to. I'll be honest, I haven't had a chance to look at these yet. And so I don't know how you. One way I thought to proceed was I would allow let Principal Ryan kind of point out any highlights, lowlights, anything from it, just to draw my attention to.
Colleagues or from mine?
Just from yours.
Well, yes, you'll notice that the figures in the first column, which were the benchmark column, and then the figures in the second column look the same for the most part, unless you get to the last page where I do share some planning room referral data updated. The reason for that, and the principals have recognized that we did set our targets and we framed our benchmarks in different ways. So you notice the heading on my first column says spring and fall. So those numbers were created from spring progress report from incoming third graders and fourth graders, and then the fall testing data from Fontes and Pinnell for literacy and from Number Corner Bridges for math. So I combined those two scores to come up with the benchmark numbers. But progress reports just went out on Friday, so I haven't had an opportunity to update for December. So the principals talked about, you know, if we had to do it over again, the reality of how this is framed, we would have different reporting dates on it.
Okay.
So it would be framed a little later out. And in the January Fontes and Pinnell assessment, or the assessment for Fontes and Pinnell and for the next Number Corner assessment for math, doesn't happen until January. So since these are live Google Docs, you'll be able to see them updated when we have new data to put in them. So if you'll please excuse the fact that the December and the February and the June
March and
dates,
June.
March and
Right.
June, are a little off in terms of when the data is available for
Sure.
us to update. So we represented that in different ways. I just represented the fact that I don't have the data to update at this time. So that's my reasoning for why you see the same numbers in there. But those will change as soon as I can work with the data of the latest progress reports from the fall. But I will tell you that, you'll notice on our different action plans, we've chosen different targets. If you look at mine, I can't speak to the other schools, but my targets were based on the reality of what those benchmark numbers were. And I can tell you that report from my teachers is that those targets are going to be challenging to meet that are in the school action plan, because the reality that we're finding is, and perhaps because we didn't have a set math program in place, is that we're finding our fourth graders particularly are really struggling with math that should have been attained at the third grade level. So a good majority of those students are really struggling with addition and subtraction when they're supposed to be involved in our math curriculum now in multiplication and division. But our teachers have had to go back and reteach basic addition and subtraction, and particularly multi-digit addition and subtraction. That we have a number of students that are really struggling with that. So
that being an issue that you're seeing,
yes.
is that translated into an action item on the Hiawatha Summit to do something to correct that, so that the incoming students that you're getting are at the right levels? I mean,
So part of, I hear your question. So part of the problem was we didn't have a system. We didn't have a program. So because there wasn't the continuity, I think is the experience that we're having. So when we typically implement a new program, the expectation of all these new programs, there's definitely an increase in the rigor and the expectations. And so what happens is a third grader in that program has a very different experience, or would have come in with different expectations, because there was no consistent K1, 2, 3.
Right, but I'm even more basic. I mean, I know we're changing to the bridges and everything, but this sounds like this is a basic fundamental thing beyond the bridges, that students coming in should always have been able to do addition and subtraction, and that we're going backwards having to reteach addition and subtraction. It might be that the bridges is part of the solution as far as to get them to the right proficiency level, but it sounds like, I mean, has this been a systemic problem, or is this kind of a one-year problem where you're noticing students coming in with this gap?
I think the other thing that's in play here is the fact that we didn't have a comprehensive assessment system.
Either.
So now we're defining how we decide whether somebody's on target or behind. And so we're applying the assessments of the number corner assessment in math, and the results of that say,
We have a gap.
we have a gap. Yeah.
Okay.
Plus we have a new standards, the learning progressions. So everything is new, and that's why in the beginning, when you're implementing it, you usually see a dip in progress because of just new standards will do that for you. But then you couple it with new program and new local assessments. The combination of the three shows a dip. But I did want to follow up on something that, and I appreciate the board's support during this time of implementation of all these new programs and use of data, because this is only also our second year of having admin inform. So principals talked a lot about how we could have used the different months at the top of the page to report out. We could have had a more common start as far as what our baseline data meant. And I think I finally understood what Tim has been saying all this time, is because we weren't calibrated in that way. It was hard for him to always see the progress going forward. So this first out of the gate report made us have some really rich conversations with each other about how we can do this better next time. And as we're getting more proficient, I just wanted to help you understand that the baseline data, like if you were to choose Summit Street School, for example, the baseline data that you see used here is with Fontes and Pinnell, which is what Principal Ryan was talking about. These are assessments that happen on a one-on-one in 15, 20 minutes, half hour max. So it's a different kind of percentage you're going to get on a very narrow standard. So the next column you see are the progress report standards, and here you see that the scores are lower, the percentage is lower, because you have a broader amount of standards that are being assessed over time. And here the students have to show, demonstrate, and apply their learning. So it's not just that 15 minutes where you can complete an assessment, but a deeper and richer perspective from more than one teacher too. So that's where you'll see some of the differences. And this is the first time I'm thrilled for the first time to be able to see progress report data K8. This is the first year we've had that, and we're just assembling it now and using some of our leadership time to talk about, okay, now what does it mean? What do we need to do differently? But in general, it's good to see percentages of where the gap is narrowing. And the other area that's going to look differently when you look at the different ways principals report is the whole performance indicators around school safe and respectful learning environments. You have like the number of referrals, for example, in Hiawatha at 11, and then when administered recently, they see that they had 19. So their idea was to limit referrals, where Summit Street School is using a PBI approach, and their goal is to increase. So you have more students being referred for reasons of role playing and reviewing that learning habit that they want to instill. So you might say, oh, 93 a month. What's going on there? That's just a difference in philosophy about how they're tracking their progress there. So I didn't want you to have that number jump out at you as a real concern. And when Summit Street School and Suzanne Grunling has an opportunity to report, she can speak to you more in depth about PBI and why it's structured in the way it is, and the data is shared in the way it's shared. So stay tuned for more on that. Principals have been putting hours into this conversation with each other, and they've done yeoman work in trying to think better around what are those performance indicators and how we're going to use data, and then the timing of the data, and really trying to give you an update that's reliable and valid. And so I've appreciated their amounts of time that they've dedicated to this cause, even though we're still in a learning phase. So
just as you are learning, especially for like the summit where they're doing PBIS, it'd be nice if there's a way to help see maybe the levels of what kind of intervention is given the principal. There are some that are probably very negative behavior that's driving a different kind of interaction, and maybe we'll have being able to call that out separate will help say is things getting worse, trending in a bad direction, or trending in a good direction. That all these little interventions are helping reduce maybe the serious ones that
right.
Be nice to somehow
characterize it. Yeah, good suggestion. Thank you.
Just, can I ask one little question? How do you take and get data on your second page, Dan? For instance, if you go to 100% of students will report positive experiences in learning opportunities in a safe and supported learning environment as measured by school-based measures. Where does that type of data come from? Because we're not doing the climate survey.
Right. We're dedicated to putting our own climate surveys out this year, creating our own surveys to see what our students and staff.
So this
say.
data that's here right now would be a little bit from last year also? Or is that strictly this year?
The baseline?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's strictly from
this year.
this year.
Okay.
Okay. Because I know the state's supposed to start doing a,
They're talking about that. We're gonna do some follow-up with that soon. We haven't received anything yet.
Right.
Coming our way soon.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions around that?
You said that you're compiling data, you think you'll have the data in there in January?
Yes.
Yeah, I just continue to think that, you know, that having this kind of information and, you know, having a kind of a set period of time where we get a chance to look and see our progress is really informative, and if over time we can alter the timeline so that it fits a little bit better with when the assessments and when the data is actually available, it'll become more meaningful, you know, in a meeting setting like this. But having it as a Google Doc and we can periodically check in and see how things are going is also, you know, is a really good thing too. So, great.
also for a first time look, this to me personally is easier for me to follow than the other action plans. I found it kind of
More data.
yeah, or the way this just seems clearer to me, easier for me to follow through.
Right. Yeah, I found where the previous system, it was everything was there, but it was just so spread out that by the time I'd read here and got to here, I didn't have as good of a sense of what I'd read, you know, way back. So I'm liking it.
Good.
I think the old plans were really heavy on what are we going to do, not the results.
The input.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then I think we're ready to talk about the VSA VSBA conference that was held in the fall.
Feels like so long ago.
It does feel like it.
I had to go back and review, and I was looking at I always find the first day I enjoy the most because we do everybody in the room, and this year was so different because they didn't bring in outside consultants to talk. They had students come in from schools this year, and I was telling Judy, it's too bad those students that spoke, those high school students that spoke about personal learning, the pathways, and the ones that spoke about dual enrollments, it's too bad they couldn't be coming into our district and talking to staff, all staff at a meeting. I was just impressed with the student, this one girl.
Oh, from Montpelier?
Was
Yeah,
she from Montpelier?
But she was only a freshman, right? Yeah.
She was a freshman, and
She's
that's an
very
example.
well, very eloquent, and very, you know, it was motivational to you know, to hear her speak about her experiences just up to this point.
But what was interesting, they started her learning plan like last year, I believe it was, and where she's taking her learning plan, parents that have students that are struggling versus parents that want their students to be high achievers and be
Self-directed.
yeah, it was amazing to me that she could take it as far as she wanted, and she went beyond what you could even imagine. So if you think children are being stagnated by being in the same class, different levels, it didn't appear that way to me. It just, I was just total, and I was impressed that school was at Windsor that had the Wyndham or Windsor that had all those titles available for their college courses.
Oh, right.
They started with one or two, Now they're up to 45 that the kids can take.
Yeah.
Just,
The dual enrollment opportunities now
Yeah.
that schools are creating, early college opportunities,
Yeah.
they're going to blossom through that personalized learning plan
Right.
because students will self-identify and self-direct.
yeah.
And when you're in control of your own anything,
Right.
just think about it. It's so empowering. You know?
Even here at Fleming, we are taking advantage of the virtual classroom opportunity.
Mm.
So we have a 5th grader who's taking geometry at the high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's in a 10th grade geometry class.
So I think people get nervous when they think of students no longer being tracked. I don't know what you used to call it. It was tracking when I was in school, and it still was tracking a little bit when my son was there. But parents get nervous when the kids are in a mixed classroom, but it gave so much validity to what the state is trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I just thought that would be interesting to have someone like that young lady come and speak before all the staff. I think it was an eye-opener for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, my second day was a washout, though.
Well, I attended the VisBit and the VHI annual meetings, and so I have the annual summary reports if anybody wants to take a look at those. As far as breakout sessions, I sat in the one that I really enjoyed, which was Joe Blanchette's on strengthening the bargaining position. Basically just going through bargaining. From his perspective, being somebody who used to negotiate on the side of the teachers union, and now he's switched to the other side.
All the do's and don'ts.
So that was very informative, though.
It
I mean,
was
it just reminded you that each side has their strengths, and it's up to the individuals bargaining how they want to use them, I guess.
So it's inspirational to hear Rebecca Holcomb speak
Yes.
about our students and the progress they're making and the perspective that she shares, and that's always inspirational. She's wonderful like that.
And then we also got the opportunity to witness some of the talents amongst the
VSA and
VSA,
VSBA
yes.
leadership.
whether it was singing,
some
playing instruments, telling jokes,
Dancing.
dancing.
Yeah.
Yes.
On Act 46, they did a whole skit around that. But it was also informative to hear the different places, different communities we're in, and the collective work moving forward across the state. Continues to be exciting. There's hopefully going to be like 11 votes before June 30th, 2016. So there's a lot of progress moving forward. And
Yep.
we had, for the first time, more school board members attend this conference than ever before. I think I was the
we fell
superintendent
through,
that had the
yeah.
most people there.
Did you get a prize for it?
No, not
Oh.
yet. But we had to go, when we ate meals, into 2 tables because there were so
know.
many of us.
Right.
So that was great, too, for our boards to share with one another. I think the Red Study had made sort of a natural inclination for those relationships anyway. But it was really good to have some kind of quality time to talk about where we were and where we were going. And it was pre-vote,
I know.
so it was a good time to
Yes.
Whole other era.
share our pre-vote jitters.
Right.
The other thing I enjoy with the conferences, probably more than the breakouts, like one of the breakout sessions I went to was governance, policy governance, or whatever you call it, because I want to try to understand town of Essex versus ours. And I wasn't able to bring away anything that enhanced any learning for me. I think the only way I'm going to get it is to put the policies up side by side and talk or go to some of their board meetings. But that was interesting that you go to something you want to learn and then you're kind of disappointed.
Yeah.
But the other thing is the individual, like hearing what Winooski's gone through that morning at breakfast and hearing them talk, other superintendents with you and other board members that have already at Mount Mansfield that have already gone through what we're going to be going through. So I get a lot out of that, you know.
It was good. It was a real Vermont perspective.
Right.
It was honed right in the past. They've had a lot of national speakers come in, and but there's been so much change in our state to have the time dedicated just for school board members to have that time to understand and superintendents as well, and to be with teams, and the sharing is really great.
It was interesting because, I mean, you hear in the news about all the jitters and anxiety around Act 46, but I felt like it was actually very constructive conversations that were being had around how to tackle some of those issues that are, you know, questioned under the new act. So it was really interesting to kind of hear that people are just, for the most part, really trying to figure out a way to make it work. And you always latch on to some of the more negative stories and stuff in the press, but it was really encouraging to hear how many people are trying to make it work for their students. So I thought that was really positive.
Yeah, sharing those ways to make those connections happen was also powerful.
Yeah. And then to I guess kind of flip that, but extend at the same time, is that the national conference is in April in Boston.
Oh, it's in Boston again.
So it's nearby.
Yeah.
So if anyone can attend or would like to attend,
They can ride with Mike.
I went the first time it was in Boston, which was I think 4 years ago now.
4 years ago.
Oh, okay.
It
But
is a really
it's
good
fascinating to get the more national
National
perspective and perspective from communities and states that are just, I mean, very different from the way Vermont operates, or the way I've learned that Vermont operates, I guess. So anyway, just putting that out there.
Cool.
All right. So next, I guess our task team updates. Communications. I'm not sure where we're at.
Sort of been on hiatus.
That's kind of on hiatus,
Yeah.
right? Policy, I admit I was flying back from Wisconsin, and they basically closed Chicago for high winds, and so I got redirected. So I didn't get back till like 11 o'clock. Policy meeting night, so I didn't make the last one.
Yeah, I was there. What we did was we kind of just went through and did a quick survey of, I think it was all of the I policies or J policies. J. One of those letters. And just sort of did like a quick thumbs up, thumbs down about whether or not it needed to be reviewed or if we thought it was okay as is. Just trying to plan out the time that we have and to position the new board to be in the best place possible. So we thought we would just sort of go through and identify which ones that Paul and others need to just sort of work on and present us with some solutions to bring it, you know, up to new statutes or other things in place. So most of them were okay, but there were a couple that we identified that they're going to work on, and then we'll meet on that next week.
Okay.
So thank you for taking the minutes at those meetings.
No, I'm happy to.
And we've been including them in your org notes, so your minutes were really clear about which policies you're going to be looking at, who will give you the feedback, and so we've included them in the orgs.
Oh,
and,
perfect.
Please take the time to that, as well as the leaders at work. We've included those minutes as well.
Yep.
So we don't have to spend too much meeting time unless you had questions.
Leaders at work, there's not much to talk about there because we canceled the December meeting and we're going to meet in January.
Right.
So
And
I think the updated annual work plan is in these org
Yes.
notes.
And then the other piece that as part of the annual work plan, or as part of the superintendent's evaluation, I'm soliciting feedback from anybody on the board. Go ahead and send me any emails, comments, things of note from July 1st through now on anything for the superintendent.
Okay.
using the work
Work
plan
plan.
as the model. I was getting that. That was like that pregnant pause. You know, it's just to draw the audience in, and then finish it up. Okay. Then let's move on to discussion on EJRP, which I think Mr. Tyler might be here for, to add some insight.
We included the minutes as well, so that from the joint meeting, so that was insightful, as
Yes.
well as the newspaper article.
Hopefully it said the same thing.
They did.
So, you know, I don't think none of us made it to that meeting. I know I didn't because I was in Wisconsin.
So maybe George
Can
can
he come up
speak
to
a
the
little
table?
bit
Yeah,
about.
that's-
Could you come on up? And
Sure. I talk to the table.
Sure.
Sure.
You're too far away.
There's a chair over here if you want to sit.
Take my seat.
Oh, all right.
Thank you,
Great
Dan.
places with you.
Out of the hot seat.
And thanks for inviting me. Thank you, Ben, for,
Yes.
and for sure. We weren't expecting you to come to that joint meeting. That was short notice, and I really wanted to ask permission and sort of make it known to the select board and the trustees that I was going to try to be the operative person in here, trying to make things happen. And I'd like to just have basically divide up what I'm about to say into two pieces. And the first piece is very simple. The trustees and the select board, as you probably know, have been meeting routinely. We didn't have a lot of meetings, but for the last 2 years, we've tried to have a couple of joint meetings each year. And the general focus has been around shared services. We're not trying to merge necessarily, but we are trying to bring some services together and create efficiencies. And so we anticipate having another one of these joint meetings sometime in February, March. We don't know when. And the main reason I'm here right now is to invite you to come, the Prudential Committee, to come to that next joint meeting. For the purpose of discussing specifically the Village Recreation Department. And we all understand that it's something that has to be addressed. And I think that the purpose of the meeting, I certainly don't want to say here's exactly what we're going to do, but I would suggest that what would come from the 3 elected boards meeting is that we would come to some consensus on how to proceed.
Yep.
We would come to some consensus, presumably, on forming a committee that would then carry the work forward and then come back to the boards with the recommendation that we would then adjust, edit, whatever, and then bring to the public for approval. And so that's my first goal here, is to invite you to that. And you don't have to give me an answer tonight. That's fine. You can mull it over and tell me some other time. And you certainly don't have to give me a date, because I don't even have a date for when that's going to happen. Our staffs will have to get together and figure out some mutually agreeable date. So that's task number one. One of the other things that in coming here, and after mulling it over for a while, in relation to all this, is that I had started out with the assumption that the Red Committee in the new Red District has absolutely no interest in having a recreation department. I don't know why I made that assumption, but I just did. And maybe it's correct, I don't know. But it occurred to me, having been involved in local government for a long time, that in thinking it over, recreation departments can frequently provide services and programs for students and families that school districts can't provide and would like to provide, but they can't, for either financial reasons or other constraints. And so I didn't want to, in my moving and talking about this, sort of push the Red Committee off and say, under no circumstances would it be a consideration that the Red District, the new Red District about to be created, would want to have jurisdiction of the Recreation Department. Maybe they would. I'm not suggesting that. I would completely defer to you, to this board. You know much more about it. You're on the board, or you know about the process. But I would like to throw it out there as a possibility, and certainly not exclude it. And so I guess what I'm saying is that at your discretion and under your advisement, this joint meeting that I'm proposing in February, March, between the 3 elected boards, would it be a good idea to also invite representation from the red district to come? Would they like to learn, at least be in the mix? Would they like to at least be consulted to consider this possibility? So again, I'll defer and leave that question for you to decide. Lastly, this is just off the top of my head, I tried to say this at the joint meeting with the trustees and the select board. My opinion entirely, but I don't see the task here as trying to rebuild recreation in the village and the town from the bottom up. Both rec departments do a great job. They've both sort of incorporated continuous quality improvement into their operations. They both are constantly adjusting their programs and services to match the needs of the public. So I don't see that we want to bring the public into this great big process, start from the beginning and say, what kinds of services do you want to see? Should we have swimming pools? Should we have a senior center? We're already doing all that, and we're doing it quite well. It's really more about how to keep all the stuff that we have in place going, keep all the services going, but make those administrative and supervisory changes at the top. That's the one question. And then the other question is, do we also see this as an opportunity for combining, and this is more municipal than Prudential Committee, but do we see this as an opportunity for combining the town and the village recreation departments? There's a lot of similarities, but there are some differences. But in our ongoing effort to create shared services and reduce costs and greater efficiencies, it seems like an obvious thing to at least discuss, if not push ahead on. And the operative word I have from the select board and town government is that they're not saying no. They're saying, yep, absolutely, let's at least look at this. Right. No one knows for sure, but again, that would be a piece of this committee's work. So I don't think that the possibilities are not infinite here. You can sort of run off the top of your head a list. It would either be we don't merge the two services and they don't go with the rec district, the red district. The village department goes under the trustees. The town department stays put, status quo pretty much, with the minor change of administration from where the village district gets its supervision from the Prudential Committee. It would then be answerable to the trustees. That's sort of one scenario. Another scenario is you join the two and they both come under the village. You join the two, they both come under the town. You join the two, they perhaps go under the red district. That's something I'd want to consider. The other one was that we create an independent recreation district in the village and the town. And that's something that we have explored. It's worked well in other communities. It has a lot going for it. And I don't want to get into it here. It's something that the committee would need to explore. But I see that as something that's a distinct possibility and something that I would suggest that if we form a committee, they look at. It would be a way of maintaining things. It would give the recreation departments a certain degree of independence from the municipal governments, give them independence from municipal budgets. That can be good, that can be bad. But nevertheless, and it gives the community more options in terms of voting. They may not like something in the municipal budget, but they may love the recreation budget. And if the rec department is in the municipal government, that's too bad, their budget gets cut. If they're independent, well, they have some independence there. Right. So I'll stop talking, and that's it. And sorry, Brad. Told Brad I'd be on, and and I don't know if you need me to. I had just casual discussion with Brad last week and told him I was warning him I was coming. So, again, one of the issues that I think we would have to address, it would be tricky in forming a committee to look at recreation would be, the obvious piece is, we need the information of the recreation directors and staff, but on the other hand, is there a conflict of interest? So again, board level discussion, we would have to wrestle with that.
Right.
So
I have some questions.
yes, absolutely.
Do you want your board members to ask first? I didn't want to jump in.
They're all
We're all
the
okay.
questions that we're all contemplating anyway.
My main focus, I've been bugging Mike to talk with you, or the PC meet with the trustees. And the reason is, with going through the Red Study Committee and focusing on this, Chris Leopold was very clear that rec was a PC issue. It was not going to go on and become a red board issue. That's where all that comes from. If you go back and look at our meetings, it was very clear. Chris kind of made it this way, transportation and that. It was like hands off. So one of the concerns I have is knowing how long it takes to initiate something. I have an immediate concern that we're under timelines, and I'm not sure if it was by June 30th or June 1st of this year that the unified district would accept our contracts that we've negotiated in.
So they'll accept them up to July 1, 2017.
2017. So my concern is I don't want to get to July 1, 2017 and we haven't resolved it. So my thought, this is my thought, I thought this spring when we meet, we usually do an annual agreement that the schools would keep be administratively in charge of the rec. I'm thinking to get the study done, to consider whether we're going to merge recreation departments, whether we're going to stay under schools in the future, or whether we're going to become our own park district. I'm just afraid if we do not have a contract for at least about 3 years, if we had a contract negotiated with the PC and the trustees that we're operating the rec department as is, then those agreements that are made have to be carried over by that unified board.
Okay.
So, because I'm just worried of giving us enough time to resolve it and do it in a, not doing it because we have to and do it fast, but doing it and doing it right. And I know that our Pat Scheidel, with him leaving and you having to look for a new manager, and we've got our 2 superintendents are going to be pushed to the wire on this. I just thought it would behoove us to look at a longer period contract and do it and get it done and have something in there that would state that, you know, it would continue as long as mutually agreed upon, or until XXX, Y, or Z happens.
Marla, are you suggesting just so I understand, you're suggesting I understand this would be, in essence, a temporary arrangement.
Correct.
But a contract to nonetheless that.
Right.
And so are you saying the arrangement would be to continue the Prudential Committee, rec department relationship as it is, or are you suggesting that it be the trustees take over for the Prudential Committee until another?
The schools would still.
The schools would continue. Okay, I just wanted to.
So that contract would have to be taken over by the unified board.
Okay.
There's also little things that has been going through my mind. We have a Park Street School that we made an arrangement with the rec department. They've got and spent their money and time on a playground, and they're operating a couple of classes out of there. So my other fear is, and it is a fear that I have, is Park Street is the historical first school in the district.
Yes.
And I thought maybe it would behoove the trustees and the Prudential Committee to discuss whether the Park Street School belongs with the Essex Junction community instead of moving it to the unified board.
Yeah,
So, that, I think we have to, because I know the money we've put into it, I know the agreement we have with Brad. That doesn't mean it's gonna carry over, because we don't have a long-term contract again with the rec department for the use of that school. So, I'm not sure where our lawyers come into play on this, but those are some of my concerns. It's the temporary, the initial, to get us through and make sure we safeguard what we have.
Okay.
Sorry, speak to the timeline. I'm not sure. Sorry, I missed George's piece, but I think with a smaller group, 7 to 9 members, who's really committed and focused on this, I think this work could really be done and done well in really a 3-month max time period. I mean, I think it's certainly not as large of a body of work as the red district, and I don't think we want as large of a committee. But I think a lot of the stuff both Allie and I have readily available, and I think can prep that stuff so that a group can sit around a table like this and have all of the information in front of them and really vet it fairly quickly and thoroughly. So I really think, if the boards put together a group even by April, that April, May, June, I think summer's tough, but April, May, June, I think a group could really come out of that time frame with a solid recommendation after evaluating all the options.
When does the PC dissolve? June 30th, 2016?
July 1st, 2017.
Mm-hmm.
2017.
But really, 2017.
sure.
So you have a whole nother year.
Yeah.
Right.
And it doesn't truly dissolve until December of that year,
Right.
because that's when all the books and all the financials are completely, all your legal issues
But
are
any
resolved.
contracts the PC is involved with that would be taken over by the Unified School District has to occur by, I'd say, by that June of 2017. Right?
Correct. And I think I concur with Brad's timeline. I think you just experienced a major study that that was really in depth of a lot of issues, and this is like one small. I don't want to call it smaller, but it's not as complex as merging two different governance structures together. And I know I'm not saying it's going to be an easy conversation at all. I'm just saying that it won't have the depth of understanding necessary as it does the comprehensive nature of education in Essex Junction.
Well, it might behoove us to maybe have something that's optimistic where
if we do have a team that goes off and studies this and we give them a time frame of 3 to 4 months to do it, but I really do like Marla's suggestion of having something in place so that we're not under that time constraint. We have a leeway if the results didn't come back the way everybody thought they were. It actually is going to take us longer. The recommendation is going to go through a lot of debate because different folks are going to weigh in. I like the idea of not having a gun to any of our heads. We have a path to get out, but in the same point, we should work with some sense of urgency to try and have it as resolved, especially before the unified district kicks in. And giving folks a more aggressive time frame, I think is fine.
Right. And I think we would need perhaps like somebody like Paul or something to take a look again at the contract that we had worked out. But that was, I forget what the term was, but it was designed so that it's always in effect for 2 years. It just and so,
a year in advance.
Right.
Notice.
And so if somebody wants to dissolve it and gives their reasons, and you have time to work it out, and then it will dissolve after 2 years. So it may be a case of what's in place. If I understand how, if it falls into the same category as other contracts that are in place, that it would just roll over into the new board in that case. And but somebody else is gonna have to take a look at that. But if that is the case, that actually simplifies that part of things. Doing a committee, a small group seven, 8 folks.
So
I think
that's
could do a
why,
good job.
yeah, and the orgs I had included is anyone on this board, and I don't think it should be Marla because she's going to be serving on the new board and this board. So she's Leaders at Work chair, so she seems pretty stretched to me. But anybody else on this board that would be interested in serving I said in the orgs 1 or 2 members to support George's concept of a study. And I was wondering about launching with the other boards at our annual March. Isn't it like the first week of?
Yeah, I think the date is kind of loose.
Yeah.
And we have another study, The Village in the Town, coming at us, where we're going to have to make a decision and probably carry something forward. And so so we're trying to time it so so we're meeting to discuss that, and then we're meeting to discuss rec. But I actually think this is potentially such an important thing that we may just have a separate meeting for it, just with the Prudential Committee and the Select Board. If I could just speak to the timing of it, and I think, as I understand it, what your suggestion is with the contract, continuing the contract, one does not necessarily preclude the other. In other words, if we had an expedited study and we came up with a solution, then having a contract it'd be understood in the contract being carried forward that if another solution is brought forth, then the contract would be canceled.
Right. Yeah. Because I think also the contract it's between 2 parties that if both agree to end the contract,
then it's done.
That it should be able to be done.
Right. And the timing, and I do agree that if we, again, this goes to the difference between having this be a very broad public process, because you need to educate a lot of people all about the ins and outs of the process and the financing and so forth, which can take months, as opposed to having it be a fairly narrowly focused. I would anticipate that you have a vote now. The Red has a vote in April of 2017. Is that correct, for budgets and all the whole new setup that is going to be brought forward to the voters in April of 2017?
So they're going to have a organizational meeting. They haven't formed yet. This new board will have an organizational meeting. Well, I'm meeting with the Secretary of Education on Thursday, and it's 60 days after the votes have been certified. So I'm still waiting for the Secretary of State to identify that date, so we know. So maybe late January, early February, that board, and that's a guess, that board will be organized, and that board will make decisions about their next meeting at that time.
Okay.
Like their annual meeting, and even that may change the following year based on what their work is going to entail. So like nothing is set in stone.
Nothing's set in stone. Okay.
But we do know that they'll have to have a budget approved for 2018.
Hire a superintendent.
Yeah, they have some work to do too.
Yeah, right.
So they'll be pretty busy as well, and I think we'll welcome, as they did your letter during the Red study itself, of your willingness to support either way.
Right.
I mean, my first question out of the gate was, if we were going to do something differently, one of the things I learned from the Red study was to start out with, well, what could be possible and what's out there that the community at large needs to understand, like what is this Red and what does it mean, and where are the efficiencies, and then during it changed to Act 46, which is no longer Red here. Now we're talking about a unified district. So my first question was, in light of the new unified board, and I have to say I continue to applaud both the select board and the municipal and the village trustees in looking at those efficiencies that can be found in an opportunity, just as the superintendents did and the school boards, to say, can we structure our governance cycle structure differently to be more efficient?
Yes.
but it also allows us to preserve and enhance what we already have.
Right.
And if that thinking is what's driving the
Yes.
study, then it behooves us to understand, well, what is this park district that you're talking about, and how does the greater community become informed about that? Not that we're moving there, but that's part of study.
Mhm.
You know, what is it? Well, how could it look differently? The questions, I have a bazillion, like, does the new unified board have the capacity to even take over that work? And if they do, we've already said one budget, and that would mean two budgets.
No,
all of
understood.
those pieces. So there's a lot of uncertainty right
Yep.
now as they're forming, but I think the opportunity to constantly talk about, opportunity, efficiency, governance structure, and enhancement of currently programs. Both recreation programs in both communities are incredible.
Yep.
So how do we take the best and
Right.
and work on those strengths, and maybe one of the things you might want to consider, and it was something the Red Study did, is with the help of Liz Subin through Heart and Soul, used her listserv in the community because
Mhm.
they've mapped the community so they can get communication going, and they asked, like, what are your questions that
Mhm.
you have, and I think if you could start to ascertain the questions from the community through some kind of a survey,
Mhm.
it might be able to guide us moving forward. And what, Marla shared her concerns of what are your questions, what are your concerns, do you have some suggestions?
Right.
And then the use of public forums to be able to start to just understand a structure that I don't know how familiar park districts are in the state of Vermont, recreation park districts. So I think it would be a great opportunity
Mhm.
for us to learn more about that.
Mhm.
I think also some backward design around the timelines so that it would require a vote of the municipality and the school board
Right.
if you were to transfer. So you'd be you would be transferring if that happened, if that was.
I don't think you need a vote, though. The contract is between the two boards.
Well, I think it would, it's all relative. It would depend on what what you're seeing as the
Right.
final opportunity is.
Right.
Just as one example, if you're saying transferring Park
Right.
Street School from school district into Essex Junction, that would require a public vote. I had put forward the idea that this might also be a time to discuss, the village owns the property under Maple Street Park and Cascade Park. Well, what sense does that make? Should this be a time when we transfer the property?
Right.
But again, that the public has to okay that. So,
any
depending on the solution you come up with, all the little nuances
Right.
might require. I'm assuming that you're going to require a public vote, and also
I
whatever.
forgot about that.
Yeah, and you don't know what responsibilities the town has. We haven't even looked at that
So we
yet.
do have to look at the final timeline and back out
Yeah.
Right.
the drop dead dates when we have to go. Like if votes are in the spring, then we need some time. Let's say we decide we want to be a park district or something else, and you've got votes going on and it doesn't happen. I just want to make sure there's a contingency
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
place.
Absolutely, sure,
You know,
certainly.
so-
I would say that reasonably speaking, if we got going on this and worked through the spring into the summer, and then the elected boards worked on it and communicated with the public and so forth, we could reasonably have something available for a November vote.
Which makes sense.
Which then, if it was approved, then it would just be it would be ready for the red district, the formation of the red district the following spring in 2017. And if for some reason the public rejected it, I anticipate it would be a kind of a village-town separate thing, one of these weird municipal things where people in the village get to vote twice sort of thing. But if for some reason there was a snag, it would give you a time to work out a solution and still a few months leeway to come up with some other plan or get a revote or something like that.
Okay.
I guess if I saw a timeline, it would
Yeah.
Help.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Is that
It's hard.
me? I apologize, everybody at work.
You're right. That timeline is important because, like, as Jason said, if you look at that and then create your committee around that time frame, you'll have your outcome and
Right.
outcome to anticipate.
Who's best placed to come up with that timeline?
I would say that the municipal and the village trustees and the PC
Right.
that committee that you're talking about, plan it backwards. And I'm sure you'll have legal counsel available
Yeah.
to you as well.
And what we can try to do in anticipation is have village and town attorney and staff try to identify some of the more obvious questions that the committee would have to address. So that'll save the committee some time of getting that digging out those questions on their own. What are there chartered commitments that would have to be brought forward and so forth? And if there's an issue of transferring property, Park Street School and village property to a new district or whatever, those kinds of things. And also, how much warning time, if there is a vote, how much warning time. So we could probably have a lot of that information ready to go before the three boards even meet.
Okay, okay, because
Doesn't a park district own their own land, their own buildings? They have their own budget, which I love the idea of keeping that budget. I love the fact that that budget is separate. I just, it's like when we go to the annual meeting for the trustees and when people are up there and trying to pull money away from the library or pull it away from the fire department. I love the fact that rec is just cut and dry. It's its own separate, it's away from municipal, it's away from the schools. I just think it makes life easier.
Well, let's try the committee, get formed and see what they
Yeah.
tell us.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we want to do next? What's like the next step?
Identify who wants to serve on that committee.
Because I would love to be on that committee.
How many you said we needed to?
Well,
I think two would
two-ish.
be good. Yeah.
I'll do it,
Okay.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Especially
All right, so I
while
got
you're
that one
still
done.
chair, right?
That would be wonderful. And I appreciate you getting the conversation started early.
Sure.
I think we are well positioned. And the expertise we have available to us.
It seems like there should be. It should be relatively straightforward, but I've learned that that's seldom the
Nothing.
case,
Right.
and you don't know what snags you can hit along the way, and you go, oh yeah, we've got to deal with that. So,
Okay.
yeah. So what I meant, I guess I'm hearing a yes that you are going to come to our joint, that you would be interested in having this
Yeah.
joint meeting.
Yes.
So
I definitely think
I'll
so.
bring that message back to the municipal governments, and we can be in touch on when we actually have a date when
Okay.
it works for everybody.
And then the outcome of that meeting, one possible outcome is to charge a committee.
A committee, right.
Okay, so to come
Right.
to that meeting
Two
with,
reps.
I guess, discussion of
Could,
what the
could
charge
at
would look
that
like.
meeting, could the municipalities and staff, could that timeline be developed as to what we know legally
Yeah.
has to happen? I find some of that legwork, if it's done before we meet,
Okay.
it makes the conversation easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right.
A lot easier.
Yeah.
So,
Well, also, yeah, it gives you certain limits
yeah.
for where the conversation can even go. So, okay.
Great.
So I guess I'll be in touch with you, George.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Appreciate it. Yes.
George, thank yourself
Uh-huh.
and the trustees.
I will.
I think you wrote an editorial saying, thanking, I think something about the Red Study Board, something, but I haven't done it, but I wanted to also put in what has occurred started way before the Red Study Board. It started with the trustees and the select board and the great relationship that's occurring, and it happened because Brad from the beginning said it was an educational decision, so that took a lot of pressure off. So there's people that made this happen, a lot.
A lot of people, a lot of good people,
Yeah.
well-intentioned.
So you got to pat yourself on the back.
We're not done yet, right?
Oh, okay.
No. Okay.
We've only just begun.
Yes. All right, thanks very much, guys.
All right, George.
Thanks for coming,
Thank
George.
you.
All right.
Good.
So moving next,
Yeah.
there's a vacancy that needs to be filled on the Unified Union Board.
Right. So when people, do you have to go?
Yeah, he's gotta
But I
go.
would just say on this one,
Yes.
I'm on option 2. I'm a big proponent of option 2 only because I think we should make it fair that anybody, since
Oh.
it is an open seat,
Right,
Yes.
that
yes,
anybody
yes.
can apply, not just approach the 2 people who
Yeah.
weren't able to, didn't win.
Did you
I-
see in the org
Thanks, Brad,
notes-
also. I didn't say thank you to you
Brad.
either, so.
Did you see in the org notes the note we were going to send out?
Yes.
Was that
like, that's why I said that option 2.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm, out of the 2 options, I'm totally for that one.
Okay.
I thought what you
It
guys
should
were
be
doing.
opened up to
It should be
everybody.
opened up. to
Right.
everybody.
Okay,
I
great.
just think that's the fairest, and then we do have to do a special session January 5th or whatever the date was.
And did you have availability on that January 5th? I had put that in.
It's just the first Tuesday.
Of course, it's the first
But
day.
I can, yeah, that's fine.
I mean, I assume just like normal 6:30 or whatever time.
What timeline are we looking to meet again as a
I-
Prudential committee?
I was trying to do it, and it's open, that's why I didn't say this is the date. I left it open because I don't know when that new board's gonna meet, so this is sort of like
Okay.
trying to ground yourself in quicksand, or jello. But I thought the sooner we could make that
Yeah.
appointment, so I was looking at like that first week of January for you to interview, send out, the information to the reporter and on Front Porch Forum, and then collect your letters, just like you did for the Red Study Committee members, set up your criteria, and then on January 5th, or a date that works better for you, choose to interview people.
When's our first budget meeting?
It's in here, I just don't
In
remember what the
here.
date, they,
Yeah.
I think there's 4 of them listed, so
There are
they are,
My thought process was it'd
Is it right
be
in
great
here?
if we met an hour earlier than we're doing budget and we're all
don't think
having to
they're
be
until-
out.
18, 21, 28 first.
I just don't know if that's too late.
I don't either. I don't know if that's too late either.
I mean, I agree with you. I'd rather just do it all at once, but if that's too late, or I don't
Yeah.
know when you need to have this. If that works out time-wise, I'm all for your idea.
well, as long as we can get a quorum and get input from folks prior, so,
Yeah, the other reason why it was the only
the
night
5th also works.
that month I don't have a meeting.
Thanks again, Jason.
Because
All
I
right.
have budget meetings all,
Yeah.
and but I don't need to be there either. Just like I don't think I was even there for all of your interviews for the Red Study Committee, or maybe I
No,
was.
you were
It
there.
was one
You were
night.
there.
Yeah.
It was one night. So it's that Tuesday. I might learn on the 10th that that they're going to not be formed until February.
Right.
And if that's the case, then
Then we could easily do it
then
then.
yeah.
Then I
have
say
some
meet
time.
an hour before the regular budget meeting.
Okay.
Because the budget meetings start what, at
On the
6:30?
Probably 6:30.
January 18th. So let's say if we learn there's not an urgency, we'll start that PC budget meeting on the 18th at, what time do they usually start? 6?
We got 6:30 to 9:30 each
so
one.
5:30?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
Yep.
could have just pizzas
right.
or something, do a dinner,
Okay.
something to
Does
drink
food
and
service
a
do
pizza.
pizzas?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. So we can do that either at 5:30 before the budget meeting, and or if I learn that they're going to form earlier,
Then January 5th is fine with me.
Yeah, it still works. It works
okay,
fine.
so tentatively,
And the letters that we would receive, Candace would be able to read them in advance, so if she had input, if that's your first day of
Yeah.
the session.
I mean, it should be okay. It's just a big question mark.
Right, and same thing for Tim, depending on what
Yeah.
countries he's in.
Yeah.
You know, it just,
Yeah.
you know, we'll make it work.
Yeah. No, I'll make it
One way
work.
or another.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's not a problem. Okay.
So you're fine with what we're going to put on Front Porch Forum for
Mhm.
communication? Are you fine with authorizing me to contact those people who are interested, or would you like to do it? I'm fine with. You also received a note from the Essex Town Chair.
Yes,
With two
I did.
people that are interested as well. We should follow up one way or another.
Yeah, why
What
don't we
was the
send-
board chair in Town of Essex interested in?
A couple of people had asked her what the process was.
Right.
And she just learned that it's your responsibility to appoint. So she's had a couple of people approach her with interests that are Essex Junction residents.
Oh.
Now,
So
what's
she was
the-
just passing along their names and
Oh,
contact
okay.
information.
Once the board's formed, moving forward, any vacancies are then filled by that board, right? Because we won't exist
That's,
anymore.
that's,
Right?
well, as long as you are in existence until July 1st, 2017, any vacancies
Okay.
are still.
That's why I just want to make sure.
After that, I'm assuming it would be
The board itself.
the
right?
board itself or else your municipal governments,
Oh.
because it's coming from 3 separate districts. So if you
Right.
have an opening, it might be municipal that has to go forward with
So,
the.
if, for example,
Alright.
Marla's right. For example, if you were dissolved now, then the village would be making this decision.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
So it doesn't really go to the new board yet, and it's what we're really talking about is anything that changes between now and that board becoming operational. So,
will I be sending out the front page forum notice then?
and that's one of the questions. And is the timeline in here also adequate? So Ben put in the verbiage.
You know, quite
But it's-
frankly, I am hoping that a present high school board member wants to serve, because from the junction, there is a lack of us having knowledge of the high school.
Right. That I agree with.
I really would heavily promote or somebody that has a lot of knowledge of the high school.
So,
If not, I gotta start attending meetings right there.
so you might want to send a note to the high school board chair soliciting interest. The problem, I think, is that two of your U46 board members are going to serve from the community of Essex. So you have 2 U46 board members who are on the new study committee, are on the new unified
Oh,
union
Liz
board.
and Kathy? was it?
Al.
Al.
So you have 2, so that board's starting to get tapped, although you do have 2 additional members who ran and as a contested, and those names were in the org notes. So I think you do have some good options.
Yeah.
You have a red
But it's-
study committee member as well who's
Right.
interested, so.
But ultimately, it's going to come down to who actually submits to be on it.
Interests, right.
And then our discussion.
And then your discussion.
So,
in the org notes, we talk about the verbiage that we used the last time you had an opening on the board.
Mhm.
And having Ben send this out so that we can have candidates return their letters of interest by December 21st. So like within the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounded good to me.
So you're gonna,
Yeah.
and we'll have Ben send it out.
Right.
On behalf of the PC. And we'll also try to get something in the Essex Reporter.
Okay.
For those who don't have access
Right.
to Front Porch Forum or, technology. So, and then we'll just say potentially January 5th or the 18th early at
Okay.
5:30. Okay.
Excellent.
You good, Ben, with what we need to do?
Yeah, I'll try to get in a order, but yeah, it might be looked at as like an ad, so I'll figure it
Yeah.
out.
Do I have a perspective piece too?
No, you missed that last time.
I probably did. Yeah.
The other topic is transitioning to the unified union.
Do you want me to give some background?
That would be lovely.
I would just give you some quick. I underestimated the amount of work that came with us. So each board right now, each CCSU member board has a specific interest. You have each ARP and an appointment to the new UU board. Westford's looking at some land, so they're involved in some of that conversation now. And U46 is working with the technical center and what that'll look like, because that's its own separate budget too.
And they own some of the property that the superintendent's office resides in, correct?
No, that property you bought. We swapped out. No.
No,
U46
because
bought.
CCSU was
U46
paying
bought it.
a portion, we were paying a portion from the high school was funding all the refurbishing that we did over there.
Right. And then there was a
So-
land swap. So U46.
That happened before me, so I don't know.
There's a land swap. Let me find out. But at any
No
rate,
one-
that's, again, it's
Yeah.
all about this
Legal,
transfer
sure.
and the legality and the real estate. It's
Right.
like there's this whole new workload. And I know a lot about kids and learning, but I know really little about real
Yeah,
estate and
yeah.
transfers and all of this. So that's been pretty busy, but I'm thinking that when we do know, I'll keep you posted through general emails. There's, as I said, the meeting with Rebecca Holcomb on December 10th. Also, Mark Andrews and I have met with Brian Regan. He was up last week, so we had
Oh.
December 1st together. It was wonderful to start to map out some of the work that lies ahead. And then Chris Leopold offered us a half-day consult at no expense. So Mark and Chris and I met again. So we've had 2 meetings, and then we also provided testimony. So all that information's been included in your orgs. And talking about, working with our organizations, VSA, VSBA, VISBET. We're the first out of the gate, so there's lots of opportunity to learn here and to partner with folks so that others that are also unifying, can benefit from a structure statewide, whatever structures of support are available.
Next up is the consent agenda then. Is there anything to pull before we?
Do we have to approve the leave of absence with the individual's name?
Yes.
Okay, because I didn't.
And the professional appointment as well.
Okay, so the name and the motion for leave of absence was
Is that
Jessica
Jessica
Labrizzi.
who's the professional appointment? I didn't.
The professional
So with that, oh, it's right here.
appointment
We didn't-
is Sasha O'Connor. Is that how you say that? Yeah.
What was Jessica's last name?
Labrizzi.
Labrizzi.
Librizzi.
And the announced tuition amount will have to be in the motion.
That's correct. so nice to have your experience, Marla.
Well, you'd think, with my experience, I would have written this down ahead of time.
Oh, and now tuition is.
What's this page?
It's 13,000 for K6 and 13,700 for 7-8.
Yep.
What are those dates?
13,000 and 13,700.
All right, Marla.
You're recommending 13,700, right?
For 7-8.
For 7-8 and 13,000 for K6.
It's actually two different
Oh,
numbers for
yeah.
two different groups. It can't be
'Cause
simple.
It can't, you know, we never do anything simply.
Okay, I move that we approve the warrants. I move that we approve the consent agenda, which consists of the following: approve warrants, approve meeting minutes of October 14th and November 2nd of 2015, accept the FY17 announced tuition of $13,000 for K through 6 and $13,700 for 7th and 8th grade. Approve the donation from a local family for an estimated value of $40,000, and acceptance of Lori Singer's letter of retirement, approval of leave of absence of Jessica Labrizzi, and approve the professional appointment of Sasha O'Connor.
Second.
Did I get it?
Second
Very
by
good.
Candace. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion for the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. All right.
Does Mike write the letter of thanking that family for donating a wheelchair?
We already did.
You did?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
in the orgs. That was a huge gift.
Yeah.
Yes.
Huge.
Yes.
Huge. I didn't know that you could use donations like that. With where I work, I have a lot of people come in that have had a relative die, and they want to know who they can donate to, and we can't accept used equipment. So I send them off to ALS, MDA people, you know. So I'll have to remember our school district can use it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Very nice.
We're really exciting. I had a great meeting with your natural playground parents. They've done incredible yeoman's work on the natural playground. They're working with Ginkgo Design. And so you should be hearing updates, especially when Summit hosts the next meeting. Or is it ADL? And
The search?
The search,
Principal search.
is going well, as can be expected. It's this week. The committee's getting together again to look at all the applicants. So that's moving according to schedule. And your teachers and administrators have been working diligently with a host of projects, and I've been so impressed with some of the student outcomes. It's been really a good fall, a very good beginning.
And, the RETN's looking for somebody to maybe serve on the board of directors.
Yeah, if anyone would like to serve on the RETN board of directors. It's kind of hard to ask that question when there's only 3 remaining people.
I know.
We'll keep that uppermost. Certainly have are always available to help our.
Right, I got to second this one.
Okay.
And then,
Help our communication efforts.
and then amongst the three of us, I think we already got consensus as far as the gift baskets we're all good with.
Yes,
Ben doing that,
yes,
and Marla was
yes.
gonna,
Same amount as last year.
yeah.
Do you need more though?
Unless the cost is, you know,
Yeah, it might be a few dollars
if the
more, but-
cost of living or whatever, or
I mean, I'll get-
inflationary costs have gone up.
Yeah, I get the same size baskets every year, so it might have went up a couple dollars. But
Okay.
it's not.
What do we look at, about 100 per basket?
There's different size baskets and different size schools, so I'd have to look back at last year because like ADL's bigger, so they get a few more baskets.
Yeah, yeah.
How it all works out, but it's all in proportion to how big the stack is.
Yeah, I'm okay with whatever you need to spend, not whatever, but with a reasonable amount
A
spent.
comparable amount to what
because,
last year was.
Yes.
You know, the
Comparable.
staff deserve it.
Yes.
And they all,
A
I will say,
recognition.
they all really appreciate it.
They
I get to be
do.
the bearer of good news, bring
Yeah,
the basket
that's
in,
a fun
and
job.
everyone's
I
like,
know.
Yeah.
It's a moment of happiness for
Right.
us. Let's go deliver baskets.
Oh, that
So
sounds
yeah,
wonderful.
and it's always well received.
Okay, so I'll take care of that. And then are you gonna get cards or just do the baskets?
Marla's gonna give you cards.
Okay.
I'm gonna leave this meeting and I'll go buy them and hopefully have them to you sometime this week, real soon.
Right.
Okay.
We'll probably aim to have them sent next week,
Yeah, next week.
middle of next week probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so future agenda items, I guess I'd like to make sure we have basically a continuing discussion of the
You.
no, I'm sorry,
Oh.
of the action plans and
Mhm.
where we are. I mean, since we're going to be working with living documents, I guess.
You mean continuous improvement plans?
Oh, is that what we got to call it now?
Yes.
All right. So our continuous improvement plan documents, I'd just like to just have a part of the evening's discussion is just to look at where we're at.
So our next meeting is technically a budget meeting?
It's technically a budget meeting,
Okay.
yep.
January 18th. That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there usually isn't a lot on the agenda besides budget.
No,
Will
and
we have an update of natural playground, or will that just come from you in notes, Judy?
It'll come in notes.
yeah, the budget meeting, the first one is usually the painful one as far as time goes, because it's grants presenting things for the first time, and that's when some of the more involved questions come into play, and then the second go around, we've had there's been a period of time between the previous presentation and questions get asked ahead of time, and we don't go through line by line as much
Yeah.
the second time around. So yes, I would any additional items besides just the budget on the agenda, I would like to keep brief, so that we're not extending the time too much.
Do we want to talk a little bit about the change this year that Act 46 made from going from a base homestead amount to a yield? So we're no longer talking about like a rate for homestead property pairs and income pairs. Now it's a yield.
So that
Just in terms of how we
Yeah.
message and talk about it.
Absolutely. That information just came out last week.
Yeah, hopefully the
from
letter
the tax
was
commissioner.
kind of helpful because
the letter was great, Candace.
Okay, good. It
And
was
the
really
press
hard.
release as well.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to disseminate it to the PC because it came out after our orgs.
Yeah.
But Westford's received it, and U46 will be receiving
Okay.
it. So I can send that as well. There's going to be that and other updates coming to your attention soon.
Yeah.
Is it a plus or
It
a
is.
minus for us?
It's-
the yield.
I mean, it's interesting. I think this is a year where we actually might have seen either the rates held steady or even a small decrease. So the yield kind of masked what we otherwise would have interpreted as good news. So what we did was we talked about what the average homestead taxpayer would be paying for a rate, as well as the average income payer. The average income payer is seeing a small percentage decrease. The average homestead payer is going up by a penny, and the non-residential rate is going up by 0.3 of 1 penny. So it's pretty much, it's good.
Stable.
It's stable.
Right.
I mean, we've seen like last year's Westford budget decreased by a significant amount of money, but they still had a 9-cent tax increase. increase.
Yeah.
So it's created some stabilization
Yeah.
I've longed for a while.
And if districts are voting and spending the same amount per pupil, they will actually see a decrease this year in terms of their overall
Okay.
adjusted rate. So it's good news. And the other change with Act 46 is that the budget question emphasizes per pupil spending instead of the overall budget, which is helpful because that's what the tax rate is actually based off of.
So that message is going to be another really
Mhm.
important, different message for our taxpayers.
Yeah.
But
Right, okay.
I was really worried with the allowable growth,
Mhm.
but the tax rate yield is really going to help stabilize that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting
I
that.
know.
So that
It
sort
was-
of makes the whole allowable growth concern feel a little better.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay.
And you're lucky because you're third out of the gate. So
Right.
first we
Yes.
practice with the SU, then we do Westford. U46 is opening up next week.
We're the last.
So by the time we
We're
get to you
last.
guys can do it in 2 days.
Yeah.
2
Right.
meetings.
Well, we got 2 of them to do.
That's true. You have
We do the
EJRP
EJRP.
as well. Well,
Okay.
thank you. Thank
Anything
you,
else?
Principal Ryan, for your hosting tonight.
Yes.
It was
you.
wonderful.
And thank you for
Yes,
getting
thank you.
the kids, together. Again, the presentation is, it's just fun to see them, get in front of us and do a presentation. It's enjoyable.
You know what's nice about having kids here is it brings home why we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we meet in a sterile and nobody shows up and you're just sitting there, you know you're working for the children, but when you see what they've done or
Right.
the room and the changes, it just
And just the
feels
surroundings
good.
too. I mean, we're sitting in the school, holding the meeting and getting that reinforcement of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So
I
like
was
that.
grateful too to have the diversity celebrated of
Yeah,
incoming
no, that was wonderful.
new students, and
Mhm.
it's just wonderful to.
That's the pace in our schools.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are we adjourned?
Yes, we are adjourned.